Okay, everybody, здравствуйте, welcome. Today I'm just going to record a quick overview of the two pronunciation rules that we're really focusing on in our first chapter, in the alphabet chapter. Um, so the two, and this is on pages 10 through 14 of the textbook, okay? There's really only one of the things about Russian pronunciation is that I find it to be relatively straightforward. It's a very phonetic language. It's almost all the letters make a sound. There aren't a lot of silent letters or things that are unexpected. So once you learn the alphabet, you can usually read and sound out almost everything. But there are a couple of nuances with pronunciation, and these are the two most important ones at this point. And really, this is most of the pronunciation kind of rules that we're going to talk about the whole year. These are the two most important, I would say. So one is called palatalization, and a more colloquial way of saying that is basically softening of consonants. And another one is vowel reduction. All right. And again, these are on pages 10 to 14, so let's take a look there and just kind of go through these two sections together, okay? On page 10, so this is where the book kind of goes in depth about these two aspects of Russian phonetics or pronunciation. So, palatalized and unpalatalized consonants and the two signs, so soft sign and hard sign. The Russian alphabet also includes two symbols, which represent no sound in and of themselves. Soft sign, which is called in Russian мягкий знак, which indicates that the preceding consonant is palatalized. Before a vowel, it also indicates a full y or y sound between the consonant and the vowel. So we've seen this already. We've seen it with, for example, the word нормально. Word нормально has this soft sign in it. And again, the soft sign in Russian typically, 9 times out of 10, is coming after a consonant, and it's making that consonant softer, or what we call palatalized. So this L becomes not just a normal L, but a soft L. So instead of being normalna, it's нормально. Нормально, нормально. How do you do that? We don't really do this in English, or at least not in the same way as in Russian. So we'll talk about that. How we form that how we soften consonants, right? We'll come back to that in a moment. This is the hard sign, which in Russian is called tvyordый знак, hard sign, and it's rarely used in contemporary Russian. So we're really not going to deal with it that much. We're not going to see it that often, but it indicates a Y sound between a consonant and a vowel. So again, just know that it exists, know what it looks like, know how to name it, but this one's not going to be something that we do a whole lot with for at least for quite a while. So again, we have soft sign, hard sign, мягкий знак, твердый знак. And мягкий знак, this is the one that we're going to focus on much more because it happens quite often. And it's pretty important, whenever a soft sign appears, the preceding consonant's going to be softer, and that's a way that we can work on our accent and sounding as Russian as possible. A palatalized consonant is pronounced with the blade of the tongue pressed up against the hard palate. A palatalized consonant sounds like a consonant plus the Y sound of yes pronounced at the exact same time. The letter soft sign, мягкий знак, indicates that the preceding consonant is palatalized. Look at these examples. So we have mat, mat, beat, beat, готов, готов, толком, только, мел, мель, вон, Вонь. Spor, spor, and so on. And so when you see that these are actually totally different words, mat means checkmate in shahi mat, so check and mate, like in chess. The word mat with the soft sign on the end means mother. These are two totally different words, right? And the only difference between them is that one has a soft sign on the end, the other one doesn't. Beat, like a computer byte, and beat is the verb to beat. Okay. Now, if you listen to the difference, we don't, again, we don't really have this difference in English so much, and we don't we're not, we don't have experience making this sound or hearing the difference between the sounds. So this is a bit of a challenge for Americans, English speakers usually, but it's just something to kind of start to be aware of and to try to work towards in the future, right? So don't expect to do this perfectly right away. We have, again, mat, mat. Now, we started out with the word нормально. I like starting with L, soft L, because I feel like it's it's one of the consonants you can hear it the most. Because for certain consonants, you almost can't hear it. It's really difficult to hear. L is really easy to hear, I think, the difference. What was the example they gave? So, только, толком. We'll stick with нормально for now. So how do you do this? The way, maybe reread the book's explanation here. I think it's pretty good, talking about your tongue and how it should be positioned, but I'll give you my explanation. So you're making the sound of the consonant, so L, right? If you say L, a normal L, not a soft one, but just a normal one, you can feel that your tongue kind of goes between your teeth. L. And the top of your tongue, the middle surface of it, is not really doing anything special. It's just kind of in the air, right? L. But when you palatalize it, which means that, and your palate is consonant, your tongue is kind of pressing up against the roof of your mouth. Not completely, it doesn't have to be 100% smashed up against the roof of your mouth, right? But just it's partially pressing up against your mouth, your palate, and roof of your mouth. So in it. So with L, I think it's pretty easy to hear the difference. So instead of, like, let's say we said this the wrong way with like a hard L, it would be normalna, normalna. That's without softening it. That's incorrect, right? But it should be pronounced normal, normalna, instead of normalna, normalna, нормально, нормально, нормально. And the reason it's the way that we're making that softer, that L, is is you still put your tongue between your teeth, kind of normal, but you're at the same time you're pushing the surface of your tongue up a little bit against the roof of your mouth, your palate. It's called palatalization. And this works the same, more or less the same with all of the consonants. So if it's a soft T, so mat versus mat. So if you say a T sound, it's T, 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 T. So you're hitting off the back side of your front teeth, T. But when you say, so mat, when you say mat, you're still hitting off the same formation, right? But you're at the same time, you're pressing your tongue up to the top of your palate a little bit. So instead, mat, 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 mat. So, hopefully that just at least makes a little bit of sense at this point, and you can hear that difference and you can kind of start to make that sound, that distinction. But if you're frustrated and you're like, either I can't really hear it or I can't really make it, just being aware that this is something that occurs in Russian is a good first step. And as we move forward, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really fine tune this or really practice it a lot until more advanced Russian. Um, So if you're not amazing at this, right, you know, in the first semester, it's not the end of the world, right? Um, so, but just do your best with it. Okay. So read these words aloud, give it a try, see if you can hear the difference between the normal consonant, which is not palatalized, like in other words, it's hard, versus a softened one, the palatalized one. So mat, mat, beat, beat, and so on. Толком, только, miel, miel, and so on. Some of the other letters I find, no, N I think is pretty clear too. Von, voin, von, voin. But I don't find very easy to hear the difference, for example. So anyway, that's how this works. It does make a big difference, especially with certain words. You can really hear it if you don't say the softness, right? Like again, I think this example, if you don't say the soft L in normalna, it does sound pretty, clearly like too hard. Normalna, 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 right? So that is our first point. It's called palatalization. Palatalization, which is basically softening of consonants. And it doesn't happen all over the place. This isn't in every word. It's only in, I would say, I couldn't give you an exact percentage, but 20% or 10% of the time you'll see words that have a soft sign in them where you need to ideally try to soften the consonant that comes before it. Okay. All right. Now the other pronunciation rule, and you can please read through this and speak this aloud as well. I think it will help you a little bit to get a little bit more practice with that. Okay. Oh, and you know what? I want to talk about this as well briefly. I think this is fairly important. So, and this is again kind of a next level um nuance of phonetics and pronunciation in Russian. Like, I would love, I want you to be aware of this, what's written here on the bottom of page, I think it's page 12. Wait, where are we here? Actually, no, what's written here on page 11, about how these vowels affect things. Page 11 and 12. I would like you to be aware of it, but to be able to do it perfectly and know it perfectly is a bit much to ask at this point. So this is a little bit more of an advanced topic. But what they're telling you here is that um, that certain vowels make, like, they have a softness in them. So not only does the soft sign do this, actually, like soft sign is the easiest thing to talk about because like it's a soft sign, so obviously it makes things soft, right? But also some in addition to the soft sign, the vowels ye, yo, I, u, and ya also indicate that the preceding consonant is palatalized. So these certain vowels that are soft, that have like this ye sound in them, it's almost like a y that's inserted, right? They make things softer. They make consonants that precede them softer. So, for example, меня, меня зовут Ольga. This ya is one of these soft vowels. So it's going to make the N palatalized somewhat here because it has a softness built, the ya has a softness built into it, and so the N becomes a little bit softer. Очень приятно. Okay, so the book kind of gets into it. Actually, what it will do here for you is break this down syllable by syllable. So look at the large print version of the dialog to see how consonants and vowels combine to indicate palatalization. Dots break up adjacent pairs. Меня зовут Ольга. Очень приятно, Ольга. Сели. Вы студентка? Да. Вы американка? Да, я из Нью-Йорка. When Russians talk about consonants, they say N, T, N, T, Do, La, Dyo, Ля. Okay. So basically what they're saying here is that because they're just contrasting these consonants, like this N here is pronounced as a hard N, but this N, because it has a soft sign after it, is an N. This T is pronounced as a hard T, but this T, because it has a soft vowel after it, becomes a T. T. This D is pronounced hard, Do, and this is pronounced Dio. La, Ля. So basically, either the soft sign or these soft vowels basically cause the consonant that comes before it to be softer, palatalized. Okay. So if you're using these vowels in a word, a, o, I, or u, the previous consonant is hard because these are hard vowels. It's basically vowels. When vowels and consonants are like in conjunction with each other, they're next to each other. They like the vowel rubs off on the consonant, so to speak. It either makes it hard or it makes it soft. So if the preceding consonant comes after before ya, ye, yo, I, you, or soft sign, then it gets softened. Okay. So for example, if you have phrases like this, da da, oh yes, but if you say the word dядя, uncle, well, this D is softer, dядя, as opposed to da da, dядя. Okay, mer, mier, mer, mier. So sometimes it's easy to hear and sometimes it's harder to hear, but again, this M, it's not super easy to hear here in my opinion, but this M is hard, whereas this M is a little bit softer. Okay, and so on. All right, so that's the concept here. And again, we're not striving for perfection with this, but we just want to be aware that this is something that happens. And then as we move forward through a whole year of Russian, we'll kind of just pay attention to it more and more often, and hopefully it'll start to kind of sink in. All right. Now that is an important pronunciation rule. In my opinion, just as important, or even maybe a little bit more important at this point for us, is the other one, and that's called vowel reduction. That is now on page, where does that begin? 13 in the textbook. Okay. So on page 13 in the textbook, we get into vowel reduction. Now, this is the classic example that we talked about where O's and A's, if they're unstressed, they sound like O. Right? So unstressed O and A, for example. So when you have a word like хорошо, which means good, right? Like, how are you? I'm good. Как дела? Хорошо. Да? It's the stress in the word is on the ending O. But these two O's, the first two syllables, are unstressed. So they undergo what's called vowel reduction. Okay. Their vowels are reduced. So instead of being fully pronounced as O's, they sound like ha, ra, sho. So this word, хорошо, is pronounced хорошо. So this O is pronounced as an A. This O is pronounced as an A. So хорошо. Only the final O is fully pronounced as an O, because that's the one that's stressed. So only one syllable in every Russian word is stressed. Let's look at another one. How about нормально? Нормально. That's a 3-syllable word, right? Нормально. See if you can tell which syllable in that word is stressed. Is the first syllable, the second, or the third? Нормально. Нормально. It's the second one, right? So that would be the So basically mal. Нормально. This is where the stress is. So this O and this O both get reduced. So it becomes normal. No, right? Now, so a common I don't want to say mistake, but a common sort of mispronunciation, I guess, in first year Russian. A lot of first year Russian students will say нормально. They just pronounce all the O's fully. So they say normal, no. Yeah? Because that's the way it looks, and that, it's logical, right? But they're forgetting about vowel reduction. So it sounds much more correct in Russian to say nar with this right? Nar. No. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And Oz do the same thing, actually. So trying to think of a good mama. That's another good example. Mama. So if it's only, which it's a 2-syllable word, which syllable stressed? Mama. Mom. The first one, right? So this one is pronounced ma. So that second gets reduced and becomes an mama. Okay. So that's what's called vowel reduction. So Russian vowels o, ye, and ya are profoundly different when they are unstressed. Okay. O goes to syllable before the stress. Okay. So the book explains this in a bit more in-depth and technical way than I just did. So let's read through the book's explanation as well. So we write Moskva, but we say Moskva. So instead of it being Moskva with an O here, it's more like an A or an right? So Moskva, Moskva. How about these words? Let's read these aloud. We have Montana. So it's not Montana, but Montana. Vladivostok, Vladivostok. Москва, Ottawa, Sonora, Columbus. Okay. Vowel reduction rule 2. O and go to more than one syllable before the stress and anywhere after the stress. Okay. This is a little bit more in depth and maybe even a little bit more technical and in depth than I care if you like need to know at this point. This gets into very subtle differences between like whether it's how many syllables before the stress it is and the difference between the uhs and stuff like that. But if you are really into linguistics and want to pay attention to those differences at this point, that's great. So, but let's read through this. So Colorado, Manitoba, Manitoba, да, профессор, шоколад, Лондон, Волгоград, and so on. Okay. But long story short, that everything we just read there is basically just about how A and O, if they are unstressed, undergo vowel reduction. And for the most part, they sound like oh. Okay. Everything we just read is basically boils down to that sentence right there. Okay. Finally, there's vowel reduction rule number 3. Again, I didn't focus on this a whole lot in class. This is a little bit more nuanced than I want to really test you on at the moment and stuff like that. But I do want you to read it, be aware of it. So, yeah and ya. As long as they're not at the end of the word, if they're unstressed, they become more of an E sound. So for example, so it's a lot like, so unstressed, this here we're talking about unstressed ano, right? Now we want to talk about unstressed Russian yeah and ya. So like if you have the word Yelena, Elena, which is a Russian name, right? A woman's name. Now listen to that. That's a three-syllable name. Elena. Which syllable is stressed? First, second, or third? It's the second, right? So Elena. Now, if you break this down and you really get into the phonetics of how this word's pronounced, it's actually something like this. Lien, Ilien, Ilena, which isn't the most obvious thing, because you might look at this and if you just do it letter by letter, you might say yeah, lie, na. But there's 2 vowel reductions going on here. Okay. So what's happening? The first, well, whenever a vowel is under, it's the stressed syllable, we just know that that vowel is going to be fully pronounced, right? Just in it's the way it's supposed to be, its standard pronunciation. So this one's yeah, right? Lien. So Lena, that syllable is easy to do right because there's no vowel reduction going on, right? So it's just lien. Now, this yeah at the beginning is being reduced. It's this right here, this rule. So when a yeah or a ya is not stressed, it becomes an e, basically. So e, lien, and then this a is our previous vowel reduction rule, which is where an a or an o is unstressed, it becomes an a. So this Elena. Okay. How about these examples? Peterburg. Peterburg. So it's not actually, as you might assume, Pieterburg. It's more, these yes get reduced to an E. So Peterburg. Peterburg. The word for Japan, Japonia. Now, this ya at the beginning, if you pronounce it fully the way, you know, we learn the name of the letter, it would be Japonia. But it gets reduced here because it's not stressed. It actually becomes Iponia. So basically, it's kind of being swallowed. So Iponia. Okay. So again, that's a little bit next level, kind of more challenging phonetic stuff. But again, we have these 2 rules. We have palatalization, oh, and we have vowel reduction. Okay. And palatalization is has to do with softening consonants. after soft sign, and a few vowels. And especially at this point, at this stage of just beginning Russian, right, we're going to focus on, like, if you see a soft sign, you really want to try to make the preceding consonant a little bit palatalized or a little bit soft. Vowel reduction deals with unstressed a and o, which sound like Okay, that's by far the most important at this point. And there's also this situation that we just mentioned with unstressed ye and ya, which end up becoming something like an e. Okay, not quite as important at this stage, but you know, try to learn it, try to do it right from the beginning is great. But you know, this is the thing that I really want you to know very well. You know, the unstressed ahs and ohs are going to be like, oh, okay, that's the most important thing right now. But the rest of it is also somewhat important, and we want to at least be aware of it, and then we'll continue to work on it throughout the year and into next year for those of you who, you know, continue on and take more advanced Russian. Okay, thanks for your attention. Questions, reach out always, and I will see you soon. До свидания.